Welcome to the Future of Wellness, exploring self-transformation and holistic healing to unlock your inner potential. Hosted by Christabel Armston and Keith Parker.
Hello, and welcome to the Future of Wellness podcast. Today we're joined by guest Anne Douglas. Anne has been practicing yoga and meditation for over 3 decades and teaching since 1989. She is a certified senior level yoga instructor, yoga therapist, holistic lifestyle coach, Yoga Nidra and meditation trainer, and retreat leader. Anne has studied many hatha yoga approaches as well as yogic and Buddhist philosophy. Synthesizing all her studies, skills, and experience, she created Anahata Yoga Therapy as a path of self-inquiry, loving kindness, integration, and wholeness, offering skillful facilitation through her compassionate heart, grounded intellect, and gentle humor. Her sensitivity and passion create a strong and safe container for self-inquiry and to nurture one's well-being. She offers advanced level studies for several yoga and meditation schools alongside private sessions, workshops, and retreats. Anne, thank you so much for joining us today.
Such a joy. Thanks for having me.
So let's get into Yoga Nidra and how you first encountered it. What drew you to specialize in this practice?
Well, it was quite some time ago, relatively early in my yoga studies. And it was, it's a buzzword in yoga now. Everybody's teaching some form of Yoga Nidra. But way back then, 20 years ago, maybe even 25, 28 years ago, something like that, it was not well known. There was really just one known style of Yoga Nidra in the West. And I stumbled upon it from in a yoga class. I think somebody just had the book that's called the Blue Book. And if you know Yoga Nidra, you know the Blue Book. And so there were no Yoga Nidra trainings. So I just read the book, devoured it really, found its efficacy both personally and started teaching it right away to my students. They loved it. And I think one of the reasons why they loved it is because they get to lie down and be led in a meditation, whereas most meditations at that point in time, really you were guided to sit mostly on a small cushion on the floor, and a lot of bodies were really averse to that kind of meditation style because they experienced pain fairly quickly in the seated practice. So it was really the comfort level of my students, their love of the practice and asking more of it that drove me deeper into the practice. Yeah, there's more I can say about it, but that answers your question, I think, in a quick statement.
Yoga Nidra is used as a therapeutic practice, right, for dealing with stress, anxiety, and trauma. You mentioned that, and the people's enjoyment, right, for lying down, receiving, being in that mode of guidance. It's a powerful tool for healing and transformation. Are you able to elaborate on how it's exactly working with the physical and the subtle bodies from your perspective?
Well, thanks for asking that. Really, I could go on and on and on and on about the efficacy of Yoga Nidra. At a physical level, what we hear all the time as Yoga Nidra teachers is people get up out of the class. It's like in a yoga class, people do the Shavasana and they get up and go, "Whoa, that was great. That's my favorite pose. It's the Shavasana pose." But it's their favorite pose because they've done all that other practice. They've done that, they've earned it, so to speak. And then there's this synthesizing or integration that happens in the lying down Shavasana. Well, Shavasana is, 5, 10, maybe 15 minutes long in a yoga practice, whereas Yoga Nidra is likened to Shavasana, but it's a much longer, generally speaking, practice over Shavasana. And so people love Yoga Nidra for the same reason. So they get this beautiful dose of lying down, deep relaxation, nothing to do, nowhere to go, and they're guided. So if there is anything to do, they're just invited to do it instead of having to meditate and keep coming back and coming back and coming back to the moment on their own volition, which as beginner meditators, that can be very hard. Whereas in Yoga Nidra, you're invited back again and again, and in multiple ways. And so at a physical level, most people are really happy to have, it's like a guided nap, a guided simple meditation. They're shutting off their brains. And because of the way Yoga Nidra works, we go through varying layers of invitations that spontaneously evoke deeper brainwave states and maybe even sleep stages, which I can speak about later, that are related to the parasympathetic nervous system. So we're very quickly moving into rest and digest mode. The nervous system is very efficiently pacified. And so it turns us from that waking state beta brainwave of arousal and readiness into the alpha brainwave state or deeper. And generally, most people get at least into deep alpha, but often into theta brainwave. And so there's this delicious level of relaxation that we're lulled into. And it's so efficient and effective that before we know it, we feel like we're in that hypnagogic state of pre-sleep or post-sleep, when it's that liminal place just before we fall asleep or just after we're coming out of sleep. And there's some sense of who I am, maybe not quite aware of where I am, but it's a beautiful liminal place, and it's deeply restorative at a physiological level. Body and mind. So the mind is in a deep state of ease. That thinking gerbil wheel of thought is very efficiently quiets down. And when the mind quiets down, the nervous system, it just extrapolates down into the body, and the whole body very efficiently feels that cognitive ease. It's mirrored in the physical body. And then at an energetic level, there's actually so much going on. Could do a whole workshop on that, but I'll just give you the Reader's Digest version. I'm sure you know the saying, where your attention goes, energy flows. So this Yoga Nidra is a meditation. I call it a sleep meditation. That's my kind of branding, is sleep meditation, because not everybody's a yogi out there. They don't know the term yoga and might even be averse to the term yoga. And so I'm upfront in saying that it's a Yoga Nidra practice, but I'm also saying it's so much more. And so when we turn our attention from the external to the internal, we are turning our vital life energy, our life force within. And so this is one of the practices that I use often in my yoga therapy practice with people who suffer from chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, autoimmune disorders, because there can be an element of this constant external preoccupation. And so a very gentle, kind invitation, not insistence, but an invitation to turn inward and gently hold our attention there. And so with continued practice, these clients feel a rather efficient recovery at some level, because they are learning to keep checking in, to keep listening within. and hearing the little whispers. So that's my brand of sleep meditation, is whisper within sleep meditation, because we want to catch the whispers, the early whispers of our subtle body, our energy body that's tapping on our shoulder or knee or gut or wherever symptoms may be, and saying, "Hey, sweetheart, listen up. Listen in. I've got a message for you." So at an energetic level, we are feeding the inner call by turning inward and listening to the inner cues that can show up as symptoms, as old unhealthy beliefs, or stories we take to be true about ourselves that actually, if we investigate them, they aren't true, and so on. But many of us don't take the time to turn inward and listen. So first and foremost, at an energetic level, to answer your question, we are switching from external preoccupation to an internal, one could say, discipline. But the root of the word discipline comes from discipleship. So we become a beloved disciple of our inner conversation, our inner language, which can be sensation, symptoms, emotions, beliefs, etc. And as we become mindful of this through this meditative practice in various ways, at various depths, we become more efficient with our energy. So it's not getting wasted on the blah, 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 ruminating thoughts of our mind. And it's more and more kind thoughts that affirm our deepest values. And then in short time, we can find ourselves living our deepest values, living an authentic life that is integral to our core beliefs.
I really love that meta frame you gave about just the simplistic adage that we use all the time as well, where your attention goes, energy flows. And simply turning inward means that you're actually starting to have your energy stay within, in a sense. And it made me think of the idea of energy leaking or going elsewhere, et cetera. But in this most simplistic sense, that just meditating, that just turning inward in any form whatsoever, you're immediately starting to pour your vital energy within your own system in a very direct manner. And
what's so exciting about this is that we can think of our vital life force, our prana, our energy, and practices like these as filling our cup. I'm sure you've used that term. So, our body, our energy body is a cup, and we're pouring in energy and vitality and well-being just by turning our attention inward. And then we can up that ante by the different layers that we go through in the Yoga Nidra practice. But even if just at that very simple, fundamental level of staying right here, right now, and because there's a facilitator leading us and inviting us back, we just keep staying. So for a 15, 20, 30, 40-minute Yoga Nidra practice, that's a lot of energy and vitality that's being flushed into the system, into the prana body, that can go to well-being instead of being depleted through external preoccupation.
I was curious if you could just give people listening who are not familiar with Yoga Nidra, just what is the general practice actually like in terms of the cues, in terms of the general sequence? So we know that, it's very relaxing for body and mind, but it's fully guided. So what is the guidance like? Like what typifies the guidance in Yoga Nidra that brings one into these deeply relaxed states?
Yes, well, there's many different kinds of Yoga Nidra now, but most of them are very true to the essence of it, which is based on what we call the Panchakosha, or 5-layer model. And the 5 layers are based on the yogic model of the 5 koshas, or sheaths, of the energy body. And or one could say the 5 layers of self-experiencing. So we have the grossest layer of self-experiencing, which is the physical body. And in the Panchakosha model, that's called the Ana Maya. Maya, in this case, from the Sanskrit language, means made of. So Ana Maya is the layer made of Ana, which means food. So the sustenance that we eat creates our physical being and sustains our physical being. So Ana Maya, and then you'll often hear kosha, the word kosha, which means sheath or layer. And so it's the layer made of food. And so it goes through these 5 layers from gross to subtle levels of self-experiencing. From the most gross level, so as we meet and feel that gross level of the body, so you will in a classical Yoga Nidra class experience this body sensing. Some do it from head to toe, some do it from toe to head. I like to do it from toe to head because it's away from the thinking center, starting at the feet. It can be very efficacious in efficient relaxation, and for those that are using the practice to fall asleep. There's a global epidemic out there with sleep disruptions, so that's why I've chosen to start from the feet. Some people start at the thumb. There's lots of different ways to do it, but always in every Yoga Nidra practice, this is the one main piece that you will find no matter what style. And the reason why we start here is because it is so profoundly relaxing. It's in the Yoga Nidra that I teach, I know that when I invite somebody to feel, let's say, the sole of their left foot, they take their attention to the sole of the left foot and they feel it. And by feeling it, there's a spontaneous relaxation response. I don't have to say, relax the left sole of your foot. I don't have to say, relax any part of your body. All I need to say is feel the sole of your left foot. And then spontaneously, that part of their body relaxes to the degree that's possible in this moment today. And so it goes, and we progressively move up the body. There's lots of different ways to progress through the body, but suffice it to say that we invite feeling sensation and noticing how the body relaxes with that. This is the most important element of Yoga Nidra as a result of its efficacy in evoking the relaxation response. Then we move to the next subtler kosha, which is the pranamaya kosha. The kosha made of the sheath or layer made of breath and energy. Prana is breath and energy. And so we use different breathing techniques. This is a yogic practice, Yoga Nidra, yogic sleep. So we're using different yogic tools for the efficacy of the practice. There's Western tools that have been brought into the Yoga Nidra practice right at the get-go, right from the Blue Book. They inserted some Western psychotherapeutic practices, like different sort of relaxation response practices. But here at this second stage of pranamaya, we use breathing to evoke further relaxation, letting go, quieting the mind. So we can use box breathing of equal inhale, equal breath hold, equal exhale, equal breath hold, or a slow inhale, slow exhale with a slight pause. There's lots of different practices that we can use that are powerfully relaxing and quiet the mind. As the mind quiets, so too does the body, and vice versa. So we're working both ways as we deepen through the layers. Then we move to the next layer. We might even point out at this layer how they're feeling. You may notice that there's a sense of deeper relaxation already, so that the practitioner can feel, as we go deeper and deeper into the practice, it's working. The next layer is the manamaya kosha, and this is the layer made of manas, or mind. And in this context, manas is referring to our daily thoughts, our thinking mind, our conditioned mind, that includes the emotions that arise as a result of our thoughts. So in many styles of Yoga Nidra, they will address the mind and thoughts and beliefs, stories we take to be true about ourselves. And in some Yoga Nidra models, we address emotions here. And we can proactively work with emotions, especially emotions that challenge us. We can work with emotions and their opposites. So, for example, if a dominant, troublesome emotion is anger, we could proactively invite anger, notice where we feel it in our body. So we're getting more mindful to it. We're not just being hijacked by it. And then we could engage the opposite of anger as an antidote to the anger, or as a choice. We can cognitively choose an opposite when we're noticing that we are running anger and we don't want to. We can actually make another choice. Some people think that because I'm angry, I have to roll with it, or we get hijacked by it because it's such a fiery emotion that we don't think we have choice. Or we can have a dialogue with anger. Is there a message you have for me? Is there something you'd like to tell me? Is there something you need or want in this moment? There's many ways that we can go in this layer of the 5 koshas. I call this layer the emotions are your superpower, because most of us think that are challenged by emotions, especially challenging emotions like anger or anxiety or fear or depression or worry, or you get the idea. And we'll try and hightail it out of there. And so we're not masters of our emotional selves. Our emotions are masters of us. And so in Yoga Nidra, it's a really, really powerful practice to become the master of our emotions.
A brief pause to thank you for listening to this episode. If you're looking to take the next step in your transformation, find out how we can support you with our popular energy healing training, one-to-one private sessions, free resources, and more. Visit energyfielddynamics.com to learn more.
So there's many different ways there, and I can speak more to that, but just to stay on point with your question of an introduction, most Yoga Nidras out there will work with the emotions by, we choose a benign one, especially if it's somebody that's new to the practice. What's an emotion that you're challenged by? Maybe it's frustration. Pick something that's kind of simple. maybe a light level of discontent. And then what might its opposite be? And you can go back and forth between the two. And in so doing, it begins to neutralize them, because by feeling its opposite, it starts to neutralize it. And there's a way that in wave mechanics, I could show you where opposites of frequency or vibration, maybe you're familiar with it, actually neutralize opposites. So very simple and yet very powerful. So most yoga nidras start at a very basic level in working with emotions. It's a very kind way, and then offer, if you want to work with challenging emotions, then there's another deeper path. Not many of the yoga nidra styles work in that way. I do like to work in that way. I do like to offer that because I've seen such incredible healing happen with it. But always I start gently. Then the next layer is the Vijnanamaya kosha, the layer made of jnana, or knowledge, or wisdom. So this is the higher mind. This is the wisdom mind. This is the buddhi mind. This is intuition. This is knowing. This is felt knowing. So in the classical yoga nidra, this is where we would do guided visualizations. In the old style yoga nidra, we would go on a guided experience, and there could be very archetypal images that would be very evocative of the subconscious and unconscious. Very powerful, because when we just say an image like full moon on a starlit night, out of the blue, some emotion or some image or some memory of the last time we experienced that may come up. So it's a very powerful and yet simple layer. Again, most of the yoga nidras that are practiced just on, you'll find them on YouTube, and they're very powerful. And most people have no idea why they're powerful. They don't know that the unconscious is being evoked into the foreground of their experience. But because they're in a deep, calm state of relaxation, it can be invited up. An old memory might come up. And because we're deeply calm and relaxed, and then we fall back into deep relaxation, a layer of that past event, maybe even a traumatic event, can integrate because we've met it through deep relaxation in the practice. I'm giving you the Reader's Digest version here. There's so much more I could say about each layer, but I want to do it justice by giving you a sense of what's possible with each layer. So we can work with cognitions in other ways, with our beliefs. If I have a belief that I'm not good enough, I'm always running out of time, I'm not good at that, my partner is never good enough. There's certain beliefs that get a lot of airtime in our day, our week, our month, our year. And usually we could, if we're given a pen and pencil, we could sit down and at least write out 5 of those. So we can work with those. We could ask, is it true? We could consider an opposite. There's many ways that we can approach our beliefs. And because we're in a deeper brainwave state, at least alpha brainwave, our nervous system, our mind is calm and at ease. We're out of fight or flight. We're in parasympathetic dominance. We're out of arousal. In this state, there's a level of receptivity that is very open to dialogue. And so it's a perfect time and place to engage it if we want. There's ways, and I can speak to that later, but there's ways that we build in what I call a sanctuary of inner peace, so that if anything gets triggered through the practice, we have somewhere to go, something to do, so that we can find a sense of ease and calm again if something unknowing surface out of the mystery, out of the subconscious. So after that, we go to the next deeper layer after our thoughts and beliefs. We can be invited into the Anandamaya kosha, the layer made of Ananda, of bliss, of joy, of peace. And so I call this the layer of vitamin J for joy. Who couldn't use a little more of that? Because most people think of Ananda as, this high frequency, high energy level, unattainable state that's only for the yogis in caves or only for the deep meditation practitioners that have been doing it for decades. Well, it's just so not true. So I call each layer, I make the Sanskrit available for those who want it, but I give them other names that are very normalizing for our Western world. And so this is vitamin J for joy. And we create a continuum. And at one end is just simple, nothing's wrong. Like standing at your kitchen sink, looking out the window, and you're looking at a nature scene or something, and you're feeling the warmth of the hot water on your hands, which is pacifying to the vagal nerve that runs down your arms and through your hands, which is part of the parasympathetic rest and digest. So that simpleness of this continuum of joy or bliss is at one end of the continuum, but at a very simple end, it's just nothing's wrong. Or a little step further is content. A little step further, maybe in the middle, is peace and equanimity. And I like to point this out early in the game because peace is the very essence of who we are. It is a descriptor of our true nature. But most of us are living in the hyper-arousal of caffeinated, do, who I am is what I get done, check off the list, and phew, finally end our day with the last thing checked off the list, maybe, and then lay ourselves down on the pillow, hoping we'll get to sleep. But if we know that peace is actually the very essence of who we are, and Yoga Nidra very efficiently takes us down through the layers into this very essence of who we are as peace, it's our home ground, it's our enlightened state, it's our true nature, our Buddha nature, our Kuan-Yin nature, and it's part of our Ananda, our everyday experience of Ananda. Like you're sitting on the commuter going to work, and the commuter's rolling along, and you've set aside your cell phone so you're not distracted, and you're just sitting there and you're just taking in the moment. There's Ananda. You hear a little child laughing. There's Ananda. Your spouse smiles and their eyes light up. There's Ananda. And so we start to, because we're introduced to it in the practice, we start to experience it more and more and more and more in our everyday experience in life rather than in fleeting moments. And we see that this essence of peace filters through all of the layers of our experiencing, from the subtlest to grosser and grosser and grosser layers right to the physical. And more that pulls into the other end of the continuum, into high levels of joy, into ecstasy, into bliss. So no matter where you find yourself on that continuum, we're all experiencing bliss at some level every day, all day. And through this languaging, through this practice, we can start to feel it more and more in our daily experience.
You're painting a very evocative picture of what really sounds to me like a very succinct and potent framework for a person to access what I might think of as their internal weather system. So this ability to tune in and to check in with, what am I feeling? What's going on? To scroll through the senses, physical sensations, emotional charges, memories, images, all the way through, and to have this permission slip effectively to be able to connect to and feel and invite in what's happening, particularly as you highlight that which is challenging, that which we might prefer to reject, to repress back down to the subconscious. It was very interesting to hear you share about this idea of this constant external preoccupation. And the phrase that came to mind for me was spreading ourselves too thin. And it's this idea of just our energy, our perception, literally our field force, as we might think of it in the energy field, being sort of discharged and dislocated across a myriad of external requirements, other people, places, entertainment, things, content in this very fast yang world in which we live. You've spoken beautifully about the potency of Yoga Nidra practice on the nervous system and your experience of that with your clients directly. What is it that current research is saying about the effects of this?
Yes, well, there's lots of research coming out on these types of practices now more than ever. And, there's studies that show the benefit of Yoga Nidra in reducing sleep disruption, chronic pain, traumatic brain injury, fertility, let's see, trauma for sure, lots of trauma. There's the iRest Yoga Nidra model of Yoga Nidra has lots of different studies on their website. If you just go to their website and then click on research, you'll see all sorts of different research studies, and you can just cut to the chase and go to the bottom and get the outcomes from the research. I can't speak to any one particular study that was done, but do see over and over again. And what's really exciting in this flourishing of neuroscience, we're seeing more and more how meditation and Yoga Nidra is a form of meditation, really is effective in building empathy, in reducing stress, reducing arousal, building capacity for being resourced even in times of challenge.
I was curious about the idea of the mind awake, body asleep, that kind of phrase where we're deeply relaxing, but our mental acuity is almost sharpening at the same time, more focus or more vividness in the mind. And this is often described in communities, for instance, who might be preparing to do things like astral projection, for example. And in particular, I was curious, do you, in the surveying of the students you worked with, is a kind of spontaneous out-of-body experiences common in a Yoga Nidra practice? And I ask this just because there seems like such an overlap in the kind of development from gross to subtle. And very often when people do start to become very relaxed but maintain awareness, often enough there are these kind of blips or hiccups where they'll kind of have these floating out of the body experiences. I was just curious, anecdotally, if you've had that.
I would say that it does come up. I hear of it every now and again. I wouldn't say that it's a common experience, especially for somebody new to the practice. I would say that it is more common in a well-practiced Yoga Nidra or meditation practitioners. And I would say that it could even be intentional for one who is in a specifically spiritual practice. They understand that we're more than the physical body. When, quote unquote, I leave the body, that's all part of me. We know that who I am is more than this physical body. And so more and more when we awaken to the truth of who we are, which is not just embodied. We are this body and we are more than this body. So we might have a sense of seeing, a sense of sensing, a sense of self that is beyond. And that's been well studied. There's people who have died and come back that have talked about the body instead of my body. There's people that have been heavily medicated, sedated in a surgery, and they've talked about being outside their body and looking at their bodies and seeing, knowing what's going on in the body, but also hearing the conversation in the room and being able to report that out to the surgeon or the nurses or the staff post-surgery. So it's more common than we think, and it actually is part of the efficacy of the practice. I do want to soothe those listeners that go, oh, I don't want that. And that's why I say it's not a common experience, especially in the early days of practice. And if it's not a practice you don't want, you just come back to feeling yourself in the body, and there you are, embodied. And so I like to say this practice originates out of a non-dual spiritual practice. And what I mean by that is that we understand that we are more than the physical body. And that ultimately the consciousness that animates me is the same consciousness that animates you and everyone else and everything else in creation. It's one. So when we speak of oneness, it's one consciousness, like a hand of a puppet that's animating me, but it's striking up against my constitution, my DNA, my story, my karma, whatever it is, whatever perspective you have. And it's expressing through that. And yours animates you and is expressing through you. And we see, it looks like other. I'm looking and seeing you two over there, and it seems like other. But as we deepen into the practice and deepen into the self-inquiry that is at the higher end of the practice, and you can go there or not, it's your choice. But at the higher end of the practice, we can ask, who am I? What am I? Where am I? What is this? The classical koan kind of inquiries. What's interesting about the Yoga Nidra practice that's so efficacious for awakening, if that's what we're looking for, is that each of the levels I was talking about before, the pancha koshas, the 5 layers, we're swimming in those layers, going deeper and deeper and deeper, being invited by the practice. And each layer is experienced through a felt sense. So we feel our body through sensation. We feel our breath at first through sensation, and then we start to attune to the subtle energy body through sensation. At first, we might feel it as the breath moving in and out, and then we might attune at the next subtler layer through the cerebral spinal fluid that pulses through the body. Most people start to feel this kind of woo, woo, woo in Yoga Nidra, just in the lying down. And then it might be the slighter streams of energy. I know I'm swimming in your world now in this language. So, but it's people come to it very quickly in Yoga Nidra because they're not distracted by anything else. They've been invited into deeper brainwave states, a deeper quality of presence through the relaxation and ease. The external distraction has fallen away, and there's this rich sense of right here, right now, heightened sensitivity. And that sensitivity is getting more and more and more fine-tuned as we drop down into the deeper and deeper and deeper levels of perceiving. So what at first we just experienced at the superficial level of body sensing, horns honking, touch in the skin, and music blaring, and so on in our modern world, it gets harder and harder to hear the whispers. Whereas the Yoga Nidra practice is right from the get-go, asking us, inviting us to come into the whispers within. And now we're at this deep layer of self-experiencing, and we get to contrast the fullness of who we are, our Buddha nature, to all those other grosser levels of experiencing against it. At first, it feels like nothing, or very subtle, or deep, deep, deep quietude and stillness. And then everything else is movement within that. And then we start to feel ourselves as the stillness, as the silence, as the quietude. And this is who we are, not just here in this body, but here in the space in this room, here in the nature around the building we're in, here in the space of the city, the state, the country, the planet, the universe. And we can feel that same feeling as we sense out and out and out and out and out and out everywhere, and find ourselves as one consciousness.
It's beautiful, and it's striking me as a kind of back door in to some of these deeper meditation states through, this inviting act of lying down, right? We're not in formal meditation posture, straight spine, focus, but it's really interesting to think of that.
I know, it kind of makes me giggle. Everybody thinks they're just lying down having a nap. And it's good. It's all good. If that's what's most important, so many people need a nap. And good, go take a Yoga Nidra class, go find a recording that you love and have a nap. And if you fall asleep, great, you needed it, right?
Yeah, but we're inviting these deeper brainwave states, as you say, and the connection to healing and consciousness, which is so pivotal. On that note, what role does intention, right, Sankalpa, what role does that play in Yoga Nidra? And how do you guide students in setting and realizing those intentions?
Thank you so much for asking that. It's a great question, because as a meditation teacher, sometimes I skip that step, sort of. I'll include it by saying, the theme of this practice is whatever. The theme of this practice is to help you sleep. The theme of this practice is to manifest the life of your dreams. The theme of this practice is to reduce stress. The theme of this practice is to dialogue with the symptoms that you're experiencing in your body. So right there, we're setting the intention. Now, sometimes I will leave that intention, most times, I'll leave that intention open so that the practitioner gets to choose what the intention is. If I'm making a recording or guiding a group with a specific theme, then I'll state the theme and invite them also to add the theme. So it's like setting the practice like a train on the train tracks, so it can stay on course and maintain momentum with what it is you want out of the practice. It's less likely to derail into sleep or going into recursive thinking or the typical things that derail a meditation practice. So the intention is important. I also include in the Sankalpa the heartfelt wish. What is it you really want from this practice or from life? And the reason why we might do that is because now we're really motivated to do the practice and to stay present. Even though sleep can be a great benefit from the practice, and we can still hear subconsciously what the facilitator is saying and thereby get benefit, we can get benefit by staying awake and moving through practice right from beginning to end. So when we really know what we want out of life and out of the practice, then, and we state it, we get clear on it, we create a one sentence affirmation in present time, so we're not reaching for it in the future, we're claiming it as already here now. Then we go through the practice, drop into deeper brainwave states, We're in this deep state of receptivity. Then at the end of the practice, we are invited to restate that intention, that heartfelt wish, and restate it as already true. And because we're in this state of receptivity, you're invited to feel the emotions of it as being true. And with that, as we feel the emotions, it helps to hardwire in new neural connections in our brain that have us perceive the new reality, that what I want, what I intended, is now true. And we feel that emotion. And this is based on the work of Dr. Rick Hanson, neuropsychologist, who teaches in his best-selling book, Hardwiring Happiness, what fires together wires together. This is a tenet of neuropsychology. And one of the ways that emotions are your superpower, if you feel emotion with a new belief, a belief that you really want to take to be true and help manifest your best future, and you feel the emotions of it, and imagine your heart's desire is true, and feel it, and even picture it in your mind's eye at this state, at this end of the practice. We're seeding in our future as already here now. So that's why the Sankalpa is important at the beginning of the practice, and then we revisit it at the end of the practice.
Speaking of practice, you have been practicing for some time, and we're just curious, what does your practice look like at this point? Is it a Yoga Nidra practice, or do you incorporate other things? What do you like to do in terms of, your sadhana?
Yeah, well, I would say right now, it changes daily based on what's going on in my life. If I injure myself, I'll enhance healing by focusing on healing, drawing energy, light to the area of my body that needs healing. But right now, I have a workshop coming up on living your heart's desire. And I have built in Yoga Nidra is the base practice. And then I've kind of gleaned from all the wonderful experts there are on that now in the world into a weekend workshop. So we're helping people first determine what they really want in their lives, what really gives them juice. And if you had that, then what would you want? And if you had that, then what would you want? So we're really getting to the essence of why we're here, what we're born for. I think it's a time for this. I think we're all being called to really do what we're meant to do in this lifetime. The world needs us to do that. And so it feels very important. So I'm just doing that work, calling us into what most lights up your heart. And then if it were true, how do you feel? And what would your day look like? And how would your relationships look? Things like that. So that's what I call forth. And I really feel that my intention for myself, Yoga Nidra can be a practice, and it can be a way of living. So I set my intention every day, living with my family, with my beloved friends, with the people I work with. And I really have this heart's desire to be a beacon in the world, a beacon for peace, a beacon for love, a beacon for joy, just to be the best person I can be in every moment. I know that it can sound quite trite, but it really is a heartfelt desire. I really mean it with all my heart, and some days are harder than others, for sure. But my intention is to be that, and the practice inspires that. So that's where I start every day. That's where I finish every day.
Beautiful. Thanks for sharing those intentions, Anne. They do not sound trite at all. They sound incredibly relevant, and can tell just in speaking to you that you endeavor to live your teachings. I'd love to ask if people would like to find you to explore your work further, where it is that they can find you, and a little bit about your offerings at the moment.
Thank you so much for asking. I just rebranded myself as Whisper Within, Healing Dialogues and Sleep Meditations. So you can find me at whisperwithin.ca. It has a listing of details of the practices, different ways we can practice. I have some free meditations that are available there, and all the other offerings.
Great. Well, we'll make sure to put those in the show notes. And we really appreciate you sharing today your wisdom and experience with Yoga Nidra. It's a wonderful practice. It's really informative for our listeners to learn about it as such. And thank you so much for your time. It's a pleasure.
Thank you, Anne.
Yeah, thank you too so much. Just a joy to be with you, and I really appreciate your curiosity and what you're doing in the world.
Thanks for being a part of the Future of Wellness. Be sure to subscribe and leave a review. It helps us reach more people and to make great episodes like this one. Learn more about field dynamics and why we think the future of wellness matters. Check us out at energyfielddynamics.com. See you next time.